Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Thanks for joining today. We are back on the Cotton Belt Coxton Sub. I haven't been here in a while, but today we're going to run the first trick of the port ops job. So this is a local job that runs from Coxton, which is shown here, and it runs kind of around town down to the port at the confluence of the Arkansas and the Mississippi River. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be a busy day. Well, as with any job coming out of Coxton, our work today starts in Nick's yard, especially if you're working for the Cotton Belt. As you have seen in previous videos, we have also the Louisville, Nashville, and the Santa Fe has a presence here in Coxton, but 90% of the work is the Cotton Belt. So we're pulling out our drill team here, and the drill team, their job is to come out and prepare trains to leave the yard. For us today, this means pulling cars off of track 2, which is where we store any cars going to the port local. And the goal today is to work 6 industries. I think overall at the port there are 10. The first 6 are all accessible from the same, I guess you call it the same spur. It's not really the same spur, but you know, basically the first 6 industries are kind of more easily served in a group. But what we're going to do today is pull out all the cars going to those 6 industries. There are going to be 4 box cars here at the back that we're showing right now that we're going to leave. They are not going with us, plus a few covered hoppers that are not going to be going with us, and we're going to save those for the second trick when the second round port chop goes and works those industries closer to the waterfront. In order today, the industries that we're going to be working consist of Thomas Logistics, followed by Reading Maritime Line. Next up in our blocking order is going to be Wharton Maritime Traders. After that, we have, New Maritime Line, although actually I don't think we have any cars for the New Maritime Line today. Next up is the Billings Meat Processing Plant, which we did have a video featuring the construction of that industry. That was a lot of fun. That industry is going to be quite a bit of work today, but that'll be interesting. We'll get to that point a little bit later. And then lastly, we're going to work the Jackson Feed Mill, which is another industry that gives a lot of car movements. We didn't necessarily have a video devoted just to that one. I did have a video where I, added a few details around that industry, but not really too much. I wouldn't really call that industry finished. But as is standard protocol, the drill team pulls out any cars that are going to be departing, and we take them over here to the drill yard. So the drill yard are the 6 tracks between the main body of Nick's yard and the automotive transload tracks over here to the right. So more or less today, all we're doing is just divvying up the cars based on which industry they're going to. And one thing we are not specifically doing is we are not ordering them by spur. So here you see some COJ3s and COJ1s. We're not necessarily grouping those together, all COJ3s together, for example. We're really just getting things separated by industry. And then we'll let the local, when they get down to the actual industries, do that last little bit of switching. Last thing we'll do is kind of get things sorted out, and then we'll start putting things back in order. And since we're going to be shoving this train back to the arrival departure track, we're going to need to actually build it in reverse order. But right now we're putting back the 4 box cars, and I think it was 6 covered hoppers that we didn't need today because they go to other industries at the port that this trick is not going to work. Those cars will go back on track 2, and they will wait until we are ready to prepare the second trick, which will be, in railroad terms, it'll be at least 8 hours later, probably more like 10 to 12. Probably something that even the next yard crew is going to have to worry about. All right, well, now that we have our train put together, we are cleared to head out of Nick's yard. Now, this part of the yard is the arrival departure tracks, and everything in the yard, including the spur to the port, including all of the port tracks, are all under Nick's yard master control. So we don't actually have to do any dispatcher talking today. We just need to make sure that the yard master gives us the all clear. Once we get into the actual port area, we will not have to worry about any of the trains. It's one of the nice things here. This local can kind of get off to their business and not really have to worry about anybody else. It's kind of a nice trade-off for those who like to be a little less concerned with everybody else and just more able to focus on what they're doing. Funny thing is, as you head across the north side of town here down toward the waterfront, there are a ton of road crossings, so lots of whistles and horns and everything else. I'm sure the neighborhood off to the north here just loves to hear all that mess every day. Fortunately, it's only 4 times a day. Once down, once back for the first trick, and then once down, once back for the second trick. All right, we are now officially in the waterfront area within the port jurisdiction. And this is where things get pretty fancy. So we've got not a lot of track space, but we do have a lot of moves to do. So the first thing we're going to do is go grab our pickups from Thomas Logistics and from the Reading Maritime Line. And the Reading Maritime Line, just for the record, does not have any affiliation with the old Reading Railroad. Here we are backing up towards Thomas Logistics. And so far we've got, looks like 7 boxcars. I think we picked up 3 from Reading and 4 from Thomas. Not bad, left a few there. I think we only have 3 setouts, so 7 pickups, 3 setouts. Definitely going to be leaving today bigger than how we came in. Nice colorful connection or group of boxcars there. So now that we have those guys out of the way, we're going to go ahead and back up here and start getting ready for our setouts. And here are the 3 cars that are going to get set out. I believe it was 1 for Reading and 2 for Thomas. So we're going to take the 2 over to Thomas Logistics first, because that's where the switch was last aligned. Also, those are the 2 at the back of our consist. Makes for a little bit easier switching. And then here we are setting out the 3rd car at Reading Maritime. Alright, so I had to do some thinking between those last pickups and setouts and what we're doing now. So the challenge here is we have to get around this cut of covered hoppers that you see to the right. And the runaround track is not long enough for all of the cars that we have, but it is long enough for all of the cars that we have to set out. So all the cars that we've currently picked up, we're going to go ahead and pull up and get those out of the way. And then we're going to go ahead and work Wharton Maritime Traders. So Wharton Maritime Traders has 2 tracks, and those tracks kind of operate in the pool. So if you have a car that's being set out to track 1, but track 1 is full, then you can always just set it out on track 2 and everything works just fine. Technically, back in the day, you could line up the doors of boxcars and they could just, lay some boards between them, and forklifts and things could go straight from one boxcar straight to the next one. And they didn't even have to be next to the platform. So these track pools kind of help simulate that. You can see we just barely made clearance there with those covered hoppers. To be fair, probably should have cut a few cars and taken those with me, but it is what it is. I believe these are our last setouts at Wharton Maritime. If I'm incorrect, then we just have 1 or 2 more setouts on the other track. Looks like that was it. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and back up and get behind that cut of covered hoppers. And that will allow us to back them up and kind of shove them out of the way on the part of the port trackage that heads actually to the waterfront itself, which will not be worked. But we will use it for the time being, since we're the only train down here, as a temporary storage track. This is why it gets complicated. If you try to do this move too early or too late, you'll have too many cars and you won't actually be able to complete the move. So timing it is quite complicated. But one of the nice things about it, it is one of the few times that you will have cars on both ends of your locomotives. Alright, so while we're making this move, I want to take a quick detour and talk about the port for a minute. So the funny thing is, way back in some DH Trainz channel lore here, way back in the day, the first ever build footage for like a build video that I ever recorded was actually building this port and just laying out the initial details. This was the first thing I ever recorded, but I never actually turned it into a video because I wasn't sure if I ever wanted to use it, so I just kind of held on to it until a later date. And then I ended up having the hard drive failure before I ever got to use it, so I lost it. But also, on top of that, not only was it the first route build video that I recorded, but it was also the first operations video that I recorded. And it was the exact same story. Saved it for later, only to lose that footage in the hard drive failure. So here we are finally, about a year and a half later, coming back to the port job and getting the job done. Alright, what you're seeing right now is we are working Billings meatpacking, and right now we're just kind of setting these cars out. These are our setouts, but we're putting them on a temporary track for now because we need to get some cars out of the way. And the nice thing about Billings meatpacking is the track that's on the furthest to the right is actually kind of, at least closer to where the locomotive is right now, is actually kind of like a alternate or like a storage track, like an off-spot track. So all those cars sitting from that yellow box car back to the stock car, I guess what, those first 7 or 8 cars there, just to the right of our locomotives, they're actually all in currently in off spots. They're actually going to be our first cars that we spot. So we're going to clear this track out of the way and get all of these stock cars and these 2-box cars off of it so that we can actually go ahead and spot all of those cars from the off spot. The 3-box cars need to go where our locomotives are right now so they can be unloaded at the platform or loaded. Some of the box cars here do actually get loaded with hides and things. And then the stock cars, of course, are going to get shuffled out, and the ones that have cattle to be unloaded are going to get shuffled in. All right, here we are shoving that cut of stock cars back. And then all those stock cars on the right, those are eventually going to get picked up and taken with us because that's where the stock cars that we brought with us are going to go. So we will be clearing both tracks of stock cars. However, these 3-box cars here are going to stay right here on the platform so that they can be serviced by the industry. Now that we have some close-ups, I do apologize if you notice that the detail level seems down. When I was recording a lot of my footage, I realized it was really spotty and patchy. And it's just because this area of Coxton has become extremely detailed, which is beautiful and fantastic. But the sad trade-off is just today my computer wasn't having it. And so I needed to tone it down a bit so I could actually have a little bit more smooth operation. And you can see that it is still a bit jumpy. I hope soon within the next year or so to be able to upgrade my computer and get some better specs on it. So it's done a great job. It's been a great computer, but it is time to push my hardware limits just a little bit more. All right, currently we're going to grab a couple of these reefers and get them out of the way as well. And now you can see we have grabbed the cars that we initially brought with us. So these are going to be the ones that we go and set out over there where we just were about a minute ago. And you can see what I'm talking about with the detail if you look at the blurry lettering on that car there. Just a quick look at how many cars we have on our train right now from this meatpacking plant. This is just a lot of cars here. I think it's like 30-something cars that we had right then. All right, well, now we have completed those setouts, and we are finally leaving Billings meatpacking. So we've taken some box cars with us, some stock cars, and some reefers. So what we're going to do is pull forward here and reconnect to these covered hoppers you see in the foreground on the left. Those are our setouts at the feed mill, which is right kind of in the background to the right. But first things first, we need to get our pickups out of the way at the feed mill. The way the feed mill works, we have one track, which we're on right now for delivering exclusively grain. We have a second track, which I'll show in just a little bit, that delivers exclusively feedstocks like spent grain and other feedstock items from different industries across the route. And then we have our third track, which is the one where the blue hopper is, where we, of course, ship out our finished animal feed products. This industry is exclusively served just by covered hoppers. It's kind of nice. I would say covered hoppers are probably one of my personal favorite rail cars. All right, and we're getting our last two pickups off of track 1 here. So these are 2 cars loaded with feed. All the other cars that we've picked up are empty cars. The feedstock cars off track 2, which is kind of shuttle back from one industry and then back to the feed mill here. So they're all going to go back where they came from last time. All right, so now we're kind of sorting out all of our setouts. We have one there in the background that goes on track 3, and right now we're shuffling out our 2 setouts for track 1, and the last 2 cars here, the orange and the white one, those are setouts for track 2. After we get those 2 setouts of track 2 done, we will have 5 more setouts for track 3, and then all of our switching is finished, which takes us back right here. So this is where we are departing with our entire train after the first trick. So now our job is to get our butt back in the next yard and let the yard crew, the trim crew actually, get to work breaking this sucker down. So we are right at about 2,800 feet, which is about as long as we can get. Nice thing about running this job today is I have realized a few track areas I need to rearrange, so later on when I do some work on the leads up to Nick's yard in Coxton here, I'll make a video about it. Stay tuned for that in the next few months. Don't think it's going to be an urgent project, but it'll definitely be a project that I get into here in the next few months for sure. Well, now that we're back in Nick's yard, I just wanted to take a few moments here to say thanks again for watching. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate that watch time. It's fantastic. I haven't done an ops video in a while, so hopefully you guys will enjoy this. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more content coming up soon. I'm definitely going to try to keep up my twice a week. But thank you guys so much. As always, please make sure to like, comment if you have a question or something you'd like to say, and make sure to subscribe for more. We'll see you guys next time.